Legend of Dragoon is a highly praised game. It is usually found on the top 10, top 20 best RPGs coming out on the PlayStation 1, or even best RPGs of all time lists of many people who have played this game. Would I say that Legend of Dragoon is one of my favorites as well? I would. I would say that Legend of Dragoon has the potential to be one of the greatest video games ever made. I say it has the potential. I didn't say it was, though. There are quite a few things that Legend of Dragoon has that I feel is very irritating. We're going to talk about a couple of them here. One of them is inventory. Inventory, you have a fixed number of 32 slots for items. This includes healing items. This includes status effect removing items. This includes repeatable items. And, of course, items don't stack, which means if you pick up 5 healing fog items, you're going to have 5 out of 32 slots filled up. So you have to keep track of everything, much like a survival horror inventory management, throughout the entire game, which is very irritating to me, to say the least. Let's talk about the magic, though, as well. Magic is another point of contention that I have here. Magic is split into two things. Magic, the consumable, and magic, the Dragoon magic. Dragoon magic is tied to each of your party members. Party members can perform up to 4 spells each, except for Kongol, who only gets 3. Kongol is a character that I am going to rant about again. I ranted about him for a very long time prior, but I'm going to try to save time and shave off how long this video is going to be. The previous one was about an hour and a half. I want to do under 30 minutes this time, so let's try it out. Magic in the Dragoon magic formula is tied to each character. For example, Dart is a fire elemental Dragoon character party member, so when you use Dart's abilities, they're going to be fire-based, fire element. And each of the elements do have their weaknesses and strengths and so on and so forth. And of course, each character has a magic stat point, magic being how strong they are or how affinity they are towards using magic. So of course, Kongol, being the lowest in magic, has the least amount of magic because his damage isn't really going to be that good to begin with, which is disappointing. Meru and Shanna have the highest magic points. Those are 2 other party members. Your party members are Dart, Rose, Lavitz, Albert. Lavitz and Albert share the same stats, because once Lavitz dies, Albert joins the party and takes over. He takes over his stats, he takes his equipment, his abilities, all of it gets tied to the same character. So technically 3 right here. Then you get Hashel, and then you get Meru, then you get Kongol, and then you have Shanna. And Shanna gets replaced by Miranda later on in the story, but you're still tied to 7 people. 7 seems to be the glory number for party members in most of these RPGs to begin with. Each one is tied to a different element, like I said: fire, water, thunder, earth, darkness, lightness, and there's another one I'm thinking of that I can't recall. Wind. There you go. So those are the 7 elements, right? You'll get an 8th one eventually, which is Divine Dragoon, but that's only in the final dungeon right before the final battle, so that one's not really worth mentioning. It is non-elemental, though. It's pretty good, though. Now we're going to talk about magic, the consumables. You see, magic in this game, for the most part, when you're using it outside of your transformed Dragoon state, is going to be in the form of consumables. And the consumable magic is tied to your character's magic stat in terms of how much damage it's going to deal. For example, you acquire the item called Burnout. Burnout is a low damaging fire-based spell that will deal more damage when Meru or Shana uses it, in comparison to if Albert or Kongo uses it. Their magic attack is low. Meru and Shana's are high. Each time you use a magic spell like Burnout, it will consume the item, and it will be gone from your inventory. So I would not rely on using magic in this game outside of your Dragoon magic, because magic is going to be very hard to come by in terms of consumables. Now, each merchant in various towns will sell a couple spells for you to pick up to use throughout that area, and usually some of those spells might be higher damage against the boss of the area that you're gonna eventually go up to fight. So that's how that usually works. But if you're in the vein of using a lot of consumable magic, you're gonna be in the habit of backtracking a lot. You're gonna backtrack a lot if you're gonna be using these consumables all the time, because not every merchant sells the same items, and if you want a high damaging fire spell, you'll have to go to this town. If you want a high damaging ice spell, you have to go to another town. If you want a high damaging wind spell, you have to go to another town, and so on and so forth. And of course, plenty of these items can be found in dungeons and treasure chests. You're gonna manage your inventory, because every time you pick up an item, you have to determine, do I need this item? Can I make room for this item? I don't know what this item is until I pick it up. If I have full inventory, if I sacrifice an item, will I get a worthy item that replaces what I have sacrificed? Or will this be a crappy item? You have to make those determinations quite often, especially if you're a pack rat like me that's always got full inventory. I usually carried about 4 revive items, 5 to 6 group revive items, a couple single healing items, 2 to 3 of each status effect removing items. And then, of course, I picked up all of the repeatable items. Those are the most useful ones in the game, in my opinion. Repeatable spells are things like Power Up, Power Down, Speed Up, Speed Down. Those 4 in particular are very useful. Power Up and Speed Up are buffs that you could put onto your character that will double their stat pool for either power or speed. Speed is just the singular speed stat, and it will increase their speed for 3 of their turns. Power will increase their defense and attack for 3 of their turns. And the same can apply as debuffs. Speed down and power down will be applied to your enemy, and they also work on boss enemies, so that you're going to want to pick these up. And these are 4 vital inventory slots out of a limited number of 32. So each one of these repeatable items, which means if you use it once in the battle, in the next battle you could use it again. You can use it multiple times in a single battle, but you can use it each battle, each individual battle you come across. And there's quite a few of these out there. If I can remember all of them off the top of my head, there is Smoke Ball, which allows you to immediately run away from any minor battle, which means anything that's not a boss fight, you can run away from it. There is the Magic 6 Stone, which can be used on anything that's not a boss to prevent them from taking action for 3 turns. There is the Magic Shield and the Physical Shield, which for 3 turns makes you immune to either magic or physical attacks. Just one character, though. There's the Speed Up, Speed Down, Power Down items, as I said. There's the Psychic Bomb X, which requires you to do a certain thing in Disc 4. This is the only magic attack item that I ever used as a consumable, which is the Psychic Bomb X, because it is repeatable, which means I could use it every single battle without having to go back and find another one, because it was consumable. This one's not. But each time you pick up one of these items, you have to sacrifice an item in your 32 limited slots to make room for them and all that stuff, and that can be annoying. And I feel like players won't get the most out of the magic system, at least the consumables, because they're making room for all these other more useful items. And it's kind of sad, in my personal opinion. It's really sad when this happens, because there's a lot of pretty interesting spells out there, and I would have thought you could have put that into a separate inventory slot. Now, what do I mean by that? You have weapons and armor. We're just going to write down weapons here. Weapons have a separate inventory pool where you can equip up to 200, where you can have up to 255 items. You're never gonna max out that inventory section. You could collect 3 of every weapon, 3 of every armor piece, 3 of every accessory that you can possibly come across. By the end of the game, you're still not even gonna have over 200 total items. You're never gonna max that out. But you're gonna probably max that out by the end of your second or third dungeon. You're gonna already get up to 32 by the end of your second or third dungeon. So you're gonna be managing that the entire game, and that can be very irritating. I feel like, personally, Magic should have had its own separate inventory pool up to 255 as well. I feel like all 3 of these needed its own separate inventory pool. But as it stands, inventory and magic are shared, and it's a total of 32. Weapons get 255, and that is very disappointing to me as a player, because I wanted more room for things. I am a pack rat. In video games, I pick up all sorts of items because I might need it later, yada 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 yada. You know the drill. Now, how is combat? Well, we're going to talk about additions next. Additions are basically QTEs. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, a QTE is a quick time event. It means when you perform an attack, 6 out of your 7 party members are going to have an addition that they're going to try to perform. And these additions are basically skills that they have that will perform a variety of combos against your opponent. And depending upon what that addition is, you will have to press a certain amount of buttons, a certain amount of times, in a certain amount of sequential arithmetic order in order to complete these additions and deal the most amount of damage possible. Every time your character attacks, they will attack once at the very least. They will slash the enemy 1 time for a very low amount of damage, depending upon how many QTEs there are. For example, Dart's first edition is double slash. You only have to press the button once to do 2 attacks. That first slash is going to be 50% damage. That second slash is going to be the other 50% of your character's total amount of damage they could have done had you successfully pressed that button. But you're always going to get a percentage of damage done, even if you fail every single addition from the start of the game to the end of the game. It is recommended that you learn the timing of all of these additions. However, depending upon which version of this game that you play, you may suffer from a thing called input lag, which I suffered from by playing the PlayStation 1 game on a PlayStation 3 system through the use of the HDMI cable cord, and I don't know, maybe there was input lag from the to the TV or whatever, I don't know. It's just when I pressed the button on time, it would fail. So I had to press it just before it was on time in order to be on time, and that was very irritating to me. Luckily for players who don't want to do additions, you can collect an item called the Ultimate War God, which is available in the very first disc of the game. It is in the town called Lohan, which you will be able to visit near the end of the first disc. You go into this town, and you can purchase this item for a grand total of 10,000 gold. you're probably not going to be able to easily acquire 10,000 gold until near the end of the 4th disc, because money is very hard to come by, because enemies just refuse to drop decent amounts of gold. You might not be able to get a 100 gold drop until near the end of the 4th disc. Like I said, it's just not. They're very stingy. Enemies are very stingy. There is an enemy right outside Lohan. It's a special enemy that drops 1,000 gold each time you kill it. But there's a certain shtick to beating this enemy that you have to figure out. You have to use the magic 6 stone a lot to stun it for 3 turns and try to kill it before it escapes, so that you could get the gold to purchase the ultimate war god. They're very irritating to beat, but if you're determined, you can eventually collect up to at least 3 ultimate war gods, so that you can equip them as an accessory to 3 of your characters. You only get 3 active party members anyways. You can just equip it to 3 characters, and you will never have to worry about ever successfully completing an addition by pressing buttons ever again. If you like it, though, then please, by all means, keep pressing additions. But if you absolutely hated it like me, that's the way you have to do it to avoid additions. This isn't necessarily a gripe a gripe against the game. It's more of a personal preference, but that's what additions are. They're QTEs. So if you don't like those, that's how you avoid them. If you do like those, if that was your favorite part of the game, that's great. More power to you. I'm not going to take that away from you at all. Now we're going to talk about characters. And we're also going to probably talk about their additions as well. Like I said, each character has an affinity to a certain element because they are a dragoon of that element. There are a total of 7 dragoons in the game that are going to be in your party with 7 dragoon stones. 6 of them are very easily understood characters. Their plot is very easily understood, and they get plenty of cutscenes and story to satisfy you as a player. One of them is Kongo. He's the final character that you could pick up, and he's also the one that has a missable dragoon spirit. Kongo joins you near the middle to end of the 2nd disc, and there's 4 discs in the game, so you do roughly have half the game to use Kongo as a party member. However, there is a story-scripted event to obtain his dragoon spirit, and then there is a missable, optional way to obtain his dragoon spirit. What is a dragoon spirit? A dragoon spirit is an item that acts as a catalyst that enables your character to transform into a dragoon. Normally, these items are picked up in the plot, via the plot, so you're gonna get them automatically. You won't have to worry about finding them. The only one you have to worry about that with is Kongo. Kongo, to me, feels like the most unfinished character. He feels like somebody added near the end of the game, the end of the development cycle, and nobody had enough time to really program too much stuff for him to do. That's why he has the least amount of additions out of all 7 party members. All 6 party members that could do additions. There's 1 party member that can't do additions, so you don't have to worry about them with them, though. They'll be able to figure things out on their own. Kongo only gets 3, though. We're going to talk about dragoon levels as well. We're going to call them dragoon levels. 1 through 5. Right? Dragoon levels. Every character's got these. Every single one. And you get to level these up through an invisible experience meter. This is a secondary experience meter called SP. There are 2 experience points meters. One is available for you to view, which is the general experience that levels your character up and increases their HP and increases their strength and all the defense and all that crap. That is available to be viewed at any time by opening the character status menu to see how much experience they have, how much experience they have left to get to level up, yada yada yada. That is easily able to be found. SP is a hidden second experience meter that determines your dragoon level. The dragoon level determines how strong your dragoon form is. The Dragoon form is a thing that you can transform into in battle, and depending upon your Dragoon level will determine how many turns they will remain transformed. You do have a publicly viewable SP meter. There are 3 meters in the game. Your HP meter, your MP meter, and your SP meter. Depending upon your Dragoon level, the SP meter will either be 100 for level 1, 200 for level 2, 300 for level 3, 400 for level 4, and 500 for level 5. What does that mean? What is SP, and how do you gain it? Well, you gain SP by doing additions, or in the one character that doesn't have additions attacking normally, and that character is Shauna/Miranda. They share the same slot, and once Shauna leaves the party, Miranda immediately joins. Miranda takes up her Dragoon spirit, her equipment, her stats, everything. So it's basically the exact same character. Now, Miranda uses a bow. She does not have additions. The bow normal attack will accumulate what is called SP, and you will get a fixed number depending upon which addition your character does. For example, Dart has an addition called the Double Slash. At level 1, I believe the Double Slash only gives you 30 SP if you complete it successfully. If you don't complete the addition successfully, you will only get a partial amount of SP. You gain SP for every successful hit in the additions combo. So, for example, if your character has 4 button presses, then your character's SP will be split into 5. You'll have an automatic gain of SP from your first hit, and then for each successful button push, you'll gain more SP for the cumulative total of however much SP is listed on your character's addition menu. You will have an addition menu that you can view once you press the triangle button to view said addition menu. This menu will show you the maximum amount of damage and the damage multiplier. For example, Dart's final addition is the Blazing Dynamo. Once you have maximized the addition to level 5, you can level up additions by successfully completing them up to 20 times each. From level 1 to level 2, you have to do it 20 times. From level 2 to level 3, you have to do it an additional 20 times for a total of 40. From level 3 to level 4, 60 times. Level 4 to level 5, 80. So 80 total, so 20 each time to level up your addition. And your addition will be maxed out at level 5. Level 5 is that golden number. But like I said, SP for your Dragoon level is a fixed number. You will gain level 5 Dragoon Spirit once your SP has reached a cumulative total of 20,000. Each time your character does additions up to a certain number in this invisible experience meter, your character will level up the Dragoon level. And every time your Dragoon spirit levels up, your magic points meter also increases by an additional 20 points to a maximum total of 100 MP for you to use magic in your Dragoon spirit form. Once you have transformed into a Dragoon, depending upon your Dragoon level, you will have either 1 turn or 5 turns, depending upon what your level is, to remain in that form. Your MP is used in Dragoon magic. Dragoon magic is elemental based. So, for example, Dart has the affinity to fire, so he will have fire magic when he transforms into a Dragoon. If you want a different character to use fire magic, you will have to use a consumable like Burnout for a different character, but it will be a consumable. You will have to go find another one once you use it, and that can be irritating. Now, what's next after this? Yes. Depending upon the character, You should be able to achieve level 5 Dragoon Spirit if you get a total of 80 successful addition attempts for every available addition for each character. What does that mean? It means, for example, Dart has a total of 7 additions, 7 addition skills that he could use. And if you max out each of his 7 additions, he should automatically hit level 5 Dragoon Spirit without you having to do anything extra. And for every other character, they have a set number. Hashel has 6, Rose has 4, Meru has 5, and Albert has 5. Kongol has 3. Kongol is the only character you're gonna have to do math for, and that is very irritating, depending upon if you plan to maximize his Dragoon Spirit. If you plan to get a complete file, you're gonna have to do that for everybody. Get everybody up to level 5. If you don't plan to complete the file, then you can ignore this part. Kongol has 3 additions. 2 of them give you low amounts of SP to his cumulative total. Once you have mastered his first edition, which is called Pursuit, your character should have a cumulative total of 3000 SP towards his character if it has 80 successful attempts of Pursuit done. His second edition is called Inferno. If you have mastered that one up to 80 successful attempts, it should be an additional 2000 up to a total of 5,000 total. You still need 15,000 more. Luckily, Bone Crush, his third edition, gives you 100 SP from the get-go. So if you do a successful 80 Bone Crushes, that is 8,000 added to 5,000. You'll realize that 8 plus 5 does not equal 20. It equals 13. Which means you're going to have to do an additional 70 attacks with Bone Crush to max out Kongol's Dragoon Spirit. There is an issue with this, however. The addition menu in the character status menu that shows how many successful attempts you have done an addition only goes up to 99. You realize that 99 is only 19 more than 80. So, after 19 successful Bone Crushes from Kongol, you still need to remember 52 more times to do this attack to max out his Dragoon Spirit. If you're not keeping count, you might get a little bit irritated wondering how many more times do I have to use this character before I max out his Dragoon Spirit, and it can be a very major point of issue for players trying to complete the file. That's why I think SP, the second experience meter, should have been publicly viewable on your character's status screen, so that you can keep track of things. It just would have made things more easier. It certainly would have made things more easier for me. Story-wise, there's a lot of potential in this game. This is beautiful. This game is beautiful in terms of its story and world and art. I'm going to add all 3 of those down in one single area. You probably can't even read world there, but I ran out of room. What can you do, right? Well, the story is beautiful, but it does feel like it's a little bit too ambitious. What do I mean by a little bit too ambitious? Well, for example, games like Chrono Cross and Final Fantasy VII were also too ambitious. Games like Xenogears was notoriously ambitious. What does that mean? What does that mean, being too ambitious? It means wanting to do too much, but you don't have the budget or means to put everything that you want into the finished product. For example, the characters of Yuffie and Vincent in Final Fantasy VII were made optional characters, despite originally planning to be main characters. Yuffie's story was partially completed. That's why the Wutai became a side quest for her, so she could get her story and stuff done there. Vincent was mostly not finished, so that's why he gets the least amount of story. And that's why he's the most mysterious of the character. But they had his moveset, his levels, his weapons, and all of that programmed in, so they made him a guest character. And right away, I've already surpassed the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to be making my next goalpost to be 40 minutes total. And I think I can make that. Well, the ambition in Xenogears is definitely notorious. They planned to make Xenogears major 6 installment, make a super big game. 6 discs maybe, I don't know. But that first disc established a lot of stuff. And then disc 2 was mostly long black screens summarizing events that happen off screen because they just ran out of budget. They ran out of room. They ran out of stuff. Even though the ambition was there. That's what I feel happened to Legend of Dragoon. The ambition was just too big for the bridges. Kongol feels like an unfinished character, probably because he is. He probably did have a couple scenes and quests and areas he could have explored to offer far more insight to his character that just ran out of time to add in. Maybe they ran out of time to even add a 4th edition that I feel like he should have had to balance out his SP experience system, because he's the only one that you have to do this math with. I also feel like a lot of areas in the game are missing some story, such as the City of Neat, the ruins of Neat, that you could visit in Disc 4. You only really need to go here for a single item for a side quest. And if you don't plan to beat Faust, the super boss of the game, you don't really even need to go here. But the game left this area in because they used it in flashbacks. And it feels like to me this could have been a side quest area, not just for the Stardust item for the Faust fight, but it could have been a place to get some story between Dart's character and Rose's character. You could have had a lot more to do here, but they just ran out of room. There are a lot of plot threads that go unfinished. They are implied, but they go unfinished. They don't have a cathartic end to them. There's only an implied end that the player, using their imagination, has to think about. For example, Haschel, which is one of your party members, his motivation for joining the team is he's on an adventure. He's on a journey to find his daughter, who ran away from home roughly 24 years ago. And that's roughly the age that Dart is, mysteriously. Dart's like 23 or something, so you have to accumulate 9 months of pregnancy and meeting the father and all that stuff. So roughly 24 to 25 years his daughter has been missing. So he's been out on a journey looking for his daughter. And the reason why I did mention Dart is because Dart is Haschel's grandson. Haschel learns that Dart's mother and his daughter are the same person. The context clues are there, but there is no cathartic story. There's no cathartic end, denouement, what is the word, conclusion, or ending to this plot thread. Haschel never reveals to Dart that he is his grandfather. There is no cutscene involving this. Players figure this out, but we want to see that scene. We want to see that get established. We want to see that cathartic, warm sense of familial bond where Haschel found what he was looking for with his daughter in finding his grandson and looking after him throughout his adventure in this storyline. And That could have been a beautiful story that we could have seen an ending to that we just don't get to see, which is disappointing to me. But it does get implied. But it feels like they cut that out of the game because it felt a little bit too ambitious, so they left it in as a small implication, just for the player's sake. Another one that I feel like they just left in for the player's sake is Shanna's story. Shanna is the lost princess to the Milesisau kingdom. Roughly 18 years ago, when she was a baby, she was on a cruise ship with her twin sister in a crib, being looked after by the nanny, and this monster comes aboard this ship and kills everybody on board, and this monster thinks it has killed the baby as well, but only one of the two twin babies is killed. Shanna, the second twin, survives, and she grows up in the town of Celis alongside Dart, her childhood friend and sweetheart. We learn that Shanna's mother is still alive, and she is still the queen of Milesisau. In her grief at losing her children, she has taken to adopting 4 orphaned girls and raising them as if they were her own children. And she never learns that one of her children, is still alive. She never learns that Shanna is her daughter. Shanna never learns of her royal lineage. All of this is kept from these characters, but you do learn this story after Shanna's been kidnapped, and the main enemy tells you that Shanna is the princess. He tells you that, so Dart learns that Shanna is the princess, but Shanna never learns that she's the princess. You never get any resolution to so many of these plot threads that feel like they were so ambitiously crafted. And that is very disappointing to me, because I wanted to see that. I can see the lore in this game. I can see that this was an ambitious project that somebody came up with on the level of Xenogears' level of ambition, that you could have written multiple trilogies of books based off this storyline, but it's all just barely brushed upon in the game because there's just not enough room. You ran out of budget. We can't tell you all the story of all of the stuff that you want to learn about, but we'll give you just enough crumbs for you to piece it together yourself if you're just creative enough to do so. And I could piece it together. I did. I pieced together all the story beats, and I was able to formulate all these conclusions, and I was able to imagine the endings to all of the stories that the game didn't show endings to. But it was satisfying in and of itself, in so doing that. But I just wish that the potential, that ambition was able to meet in the finished product. I hoped that Kongo could have been the completed character that he should have been. I feel like Haschel should have been able to tell Dart he was his grandfather, and that Dart could have found his family, and it was all around him the entire time. I wished that Shanna could have learned that her mother was still around. That could have been addressed. I really wished a lot of those things were put in here. I was looking for them. I was looking for bonus cutscenes, because there are quite a few of those. But they just aren't here. Now, I've got about a minute left. We're going to rant about one more thing. There are towns that are tied to the discs. For example, everything you visit in Disc 1 is only in Disc 1, but you can revisit there. There are some bonus cutscenes in Disc 1's towns, such as the town of Bale, But when you go into Bail, if you're in, for example, disc 4, you have to take out disc 4 and put disc 1 back in to enter Bail. And you have to do that every time you backtrack. And I absolutely friggin' hated that! Art, real quick. Art's fantastic. It's beautiful. Music, real quick. Music, really, really good music. Some tracks are really, really big earworms. And then, for the most part, a lot of the other tracks are boring. It reeks of needing more. The whole game is just, I need more.